Hello everyone, welcome to the series where we look at some interesting games, usually completely random, that we've been playing over the last few weeks, and tell you a bit about them.
Yep, 6 games to go through. Mine are pretty random this week, I must say. I think yours are too, aren't they? Yeah, so we've got some good ones to talk about. Do let us know if you've played them, what you think of them, what you've played in the comments below. That'd be great.
Save yourself some money on your eShop credit as well and support us a tiny little bit by buying your eShop credit over at switchup.gg. You get 5% back in cashback. All right then, what are the interesting games we've been playing? Well, let's find out. Let's start off then with Katana Kami. I think it's a way of a samurai or something like that. I forget the full name. It's on the screen. Just down there somewhere.
It will be, indeed.
This is an interesting take on the roguelite that I bought from PlayAsia, using our discount actually.
Oh, nice. Yeah, 5%.
Right down there.
Might as well.
Might as well.
Why not?
Why not?
Down there now. Do it.
Immediately. It's very good actually. It has English on the cart, obviously, although I did have to get the old Google Translate out and hold my phone up to the screen to work my way through the menus.
Oh, okay.
You know when you're trying to find the language option?
Yeah, oh, right. Oh, okay. So it's not a stand. You have to manually go in.
Oh, you got to manually go in there, boy. So once you've actually changed the language, what you've got is a good story. So it starts out with, I think he's a blacksmith, and his daughter gets stolen by like a local, I'm going to say warlord. I don't know if it is. I just want to say the word warlord.
It's good word.
It's a great word. And he's then extorting him for money.
Yes.
But the blacksmith can't afford it. You rock up and you say to him, I'll pay the money for you and I'll save your daughter as long as you let me marry her.
It's fair.
And he's literally like, you've just walked up. You having a laugh?
What's your name?
Yeah, well, who are you? Sunshine.
Matey boy.
And then he says yes.
Oh, well, okay, fair enough.
So, well, he doesn't actually say yes. He does that thing. He's like, well, we'll see. You know, I'll make my mind up once she's rescued.
No, I wouldn't go for that.
No, I wouldn't.
No, I want something in writing.
Yeah, blood.
Well, I mean, a pen will do.
Yeah, a pen will do, actually.
Be fine. Got a biro right here. I need to
put the knife down.
Got a fountain pen.
I almost bought a fountain pen yesterday.
I haven't had a fountain pen since I was at school.
I loved them.
It just used to bleed all over me work.
You had to have a good one. Parker's.
Couldn't afford all that crap. Stick with the old Bic.
Leans in. Oh yeah, we're talking about games, aren't we?
Yeah.
Not pens.
No.
Pen up.
Pen up.
So Katana Kami is basically, it feels like a mixture of traditional roguelite and like a Diablo clone. Basically, you have this start area. There is a town and everything as well. I haven't got there yet, so we'll see how, see how that plays out. But at the moment, what I'm doing is trying to pay off his like weekly debts.
Yes. Yeah.
So at night time, once you sleep, and they just sleep on the floor there, don't they? Very close.
Very close.
Very cozy. And they get up. And they go into the tree. I know. The tree is basically apparently I always do that. It's like a deity in tree form that then opens up a gateway to this weird nether realm.
Okay.
I mean, if you're going to be a deity, you're not going to be a gate, are you?
I think the person that wrote this fountain pen leaked all over their work. And then they went up to like pitch it and they couldn't read after. And then there's a, what's that say? Tree? Is it but she's actually a deity? It leaked. Should have got Bic. Sorry.
Well, now we know why it is the way it is.
Exactly, yeah.
When you're in that area, then it takes on an action game form that uses a weird stamina system where you've got your stamina, and when you're still and your sword is away, your katana, I will say, then your health is replenished using that stamina. When that stamina reaches 0, then obviously you need to rely on healing items, mushrooms and bits and bobs. And the aim of the game is to go around killing as many creatures as you can, trying to survive as long as you can, like most roguelites, progressing to different floors, defeating bosses, getting the bunts, to then take it to Matey Boy and go, there you go, there's your money for the day.
Yeah.
What I like about this is it lets you do a few, now someone called this Euro jank.
Okay.
Apparently it's where like, I don't know what, like developers are on these smaller budgets. Sometimes they do unusual things you wouldn't expect. Right. I'm going with Euro jank. I don't know what it means, but I'm taking it. For example, I paid the guy.
Yeah.
Then I chased him down and butchered him. I want to see how that plays out because I believe there's a faction system in the game where you can, your rating can severely go down when you butcher the guy that you've just given 100 coins to. Yeah, it's interesting. I just like that they let me do that.
Yeah, but it didn't seem to
do much.
anything,
Yeah, not yet. No, because he was like, "Oh, good job."
I mean, to be fair, when you paid him, you could have refused to pay him.
I could have.
So officially, you could have, I suppose, changed the course that way. You paid him and then ran after him and beat him up. And obviously the game didn't understand that, did it?
No, it didn't. There's a few special moves and things with that katana as well. You can like keep it sheathed and then it starts to glow and you can whip it out, thrust it in everyone's faces. And you can pick up new weapons as well. It just looks way more in-depth than I thought it would, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, and it looks like, I mean this in the nicest possible way, it looks a bit like a PS2 game. Well, it gives me PS2 game vibes, but I say that very much from a nostalgic, point of view.
Yeah.
I like how it looks. And also when you went back from your run, you could put your money in the safe.
Yeah.
And obviously then if you go on another run, you won't lose it. So even if there is a roguelite element to it, you can save that progression, which was good.
Absolutely. I think it's reasonably cheap as well. So yeah, I think it's one of those ones that I can say already it's enjoyable enough as a pickup. Physically maybe.
Yeah, I mean, whatever price was shown at the bottom of the screen would have been the eShop price. It always is. But Mark is talking about the one he bought physically from PlayAsia, just to make that clear. But yeah.
So that's my first game.
Lovely job. Right, my first one then is a bit of a blast from the past. And this is Parasol Stars. I think it's the full title. It's like the story of Bubble Bobble 3, which gives a clue as to what this is exactly. So this has always fascinated me, the Bubble Bobble series. So you had the first game, obviously, which was a big hit in the arcades. You had the two dragons if you played in 2-player, and you had to capture the enemies within the bubbles to clear them off the stage and move on. I don't think I've ever known a series to change its gameplay so dramatically from one game to the next, because the next one was Rainbow Islands, where you played as two humans, which were the dragons that turned back into humans at the end of the first game. And this time you were using rainbows to beat the enemies and make platforms and move up through levels. And then you had Parasol Stars, which is you're using an umbrella to grab the enemies and you kind of like shake them about and then you throw them across the screen to defeat other enemies. Generally, when you get sequels to popular games, they stay very close to the tried and tested formula, especially if it's been back then in the arcades a big hit. I found it quite refreshing and also quite brave of them that they changed it so much from game to game,
Yeah, I mean, if you consider something like Mario, the first few, the opposite of that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those where it's like a single screen full of enemies, as I mentioned. You have to clear all enemies, move on. Every so often you have a boss fight. I think there are 8 worlds in total, 6-7 screens per world. There are a few hidden or lost levels as well in there that you can try to find, of course. It plays very well to this day, I must say. I played a good chunk of it last night, and I think that's testament to it, because I turned it on just as a bit of a refresher, really, because I played it before. I played the series before, certainly. And an hour later you're still playing, and in a game like this, an hour almost equates to about 5-6 hours in an RPG. Do you know what I mean? And it's just a very nice, cheery game. And it does hold up pretty well. It's about £8, £9 from what I remember. Worth buying if you've got any nostalgia for it, certainly if it ever goes on sale. It's got quite an interesting history behind it in terms of its development. So it never released in arcade. It released on the PC Engine, or the Turbo Graphics, as it was called in some regions, which is not the interesting part.
No, thank goodness.
No, that's not interesting at all. That's boring. The interesting part is that it released via Ocean, who we've spoken about before, actually.
Yeah.
A few ports to other consoles in Europe, NES, Amiga. It was going to get a Commodore 64 port, right? And from what I read, and I read it on Wikipedia, and you know what you're like, you're always like, But it had a link, and I followed the link, and I read the full story, and it's been confirmed by the people involved. It's pretty crazy, actually. So the man that was developing the Commodore 64 port, he'd produced a running demo, if you like, to show his bosses at Ocean, and they were happy, so he went forward with it. And apparently he and his wife were going through some issues, and they eventually split up. She smashed the discs up that had the code on it for his development of the game. He lost all of the work, and therefore it never released on the Commodore 64.
Oh my word. That is bubble burst.
Oh, for sure. But that's crazy, isn't it?
That is absolutely insane.
Because apparently when it first revealed, because it had been like in a lot of magazines for the Commodore, like coming soon and whatnot. And when it first revealed it wasn't now coming, the story was that his house had been burgled and they'd lost the source code that way.
Oh.
And then over the years, it was confirmed by him. Well, I say, there's always two sides to a story, but from what I read, that actually no, his wife smashed the discs up as part of obviously a very unhappy life at home.
Yeah, that's I bet he gradually drip fed that out, didn't he? It's like, that time. It's like, well, actually,
yeah. I'd never read anything like that.
That's crazy.
Absolutely crazy.
Well, there you go. That was quite interesting. Fair play to you.
Yeah.
A lot more interesting than the engine. You were right.
Not the engine.
No.
The PC Engine.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was really, wow. Okay, crazy. All right, my next one then is a game called, I have to look down, so you might have heard a change in audio, Gungrave G.O.R.E Ultimate Enhanced Edition.
Okay. Yeah.
Another of my PlayAsia purchases. And this one is like an action game. This, again, like you said before, has a PS2 vibe to it. You know, this is a full-on action game. It's very cool. Do you know what? I miss the days where they had FMVs in a lot of these games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This has got full-on FMVs. The guy rocks in. The thing that he's carrying on his back is not just a gun. It's also like a coffin that he like flies around in. It's absolutely bonkers. So you start the game, you're going to basically take down these 4 bosses, like mafia bosses, in different areas. A very loose setup for go in and kill everyone.
Right, okay, yeah.
You know? So you can swing around your, whatever that thing is. He's called Grave, or is he called Gore? Oh, if I get that wrong, that's embarrassing. It's Grave is obviously probably the thing that he's swinging around.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, whatever. He's got a name.
Oh yeah.
And you can shoot from a distance. Obviously, I went into the menus to see if you could, you know, use gyro, but you can't.
No.
He's disappointed.
I'm gutted.
You see the look on his face.
I wouldn't have even thought to look.
You almost spit on the ground. But it auto locks. You really don't have to think at all. But it's got some cool things. So you can like do a scorpion move where you're like, get over here.
Oh, nice.
Whip him over.
Yeah.
It's pretty. I mean, obviously on the Switch, because the graphics are a bit the gore doesn't look too bad.
Right.
But some of the moves you do, you pull them over. I'm gesturing, so I have to say it so we don't get cancelled. In the, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right in there.
Right in there, right in that bit.
Oh yeah.
Wow, that's brutal.
So yeah, it definitely lives up to the Gore name. I should imagine there's got to be some animes around this or something. I know there's a lot of previous games.
What was it called again?
Gungrave G.O.R.E.
Gungrave, right? Yeah. I'm like 75% sure there's a
Yeah,
something.
There's
behind
got
it.
to be. There's got to be, because it talks about the history, like gives you this kind of big spiel introduction about previous things that have taken place. So I'm assuming. Let us know in the comments. I'm sure it's a big series or something in Japan. But it's fun. Like it doesn't set the world on fire. It's very linear. You know, move from area to area, shoot everything.
Which is nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
No.
Grab someone. You can use human shields as well. It's just fun. You can do the triggers together, and suddenly you go absolutely ridiculous. Tell you what it does do. There's a film with Christian Bale called, oh my goodness, it's the one where he's got the gun carter. Help me out in the comments. He's basically like a police that use these 2 pistols, and he can like do this karate with it, or like this what do you call it, like a martial art where he can shoot everyone all around him.
Yeah.
Equilibrium, good film. There you go. It's come back to me. But you can basically do that once you power up. It just goes absolutely bonkers, and he's like pointing it behind him, shooting him in the fight. It's quality. Like it's just fun. And it looks like there's a skill tree as well. I just unlocked the skill tree, putting points into new abilities and stuff. Yeah, if you like action games. I had never heard of this. Did this not come out in the UK or something, or was it just like a?
I couldn't say with any certainty, but you would be surprised how many of these games do come out.
Right. Okay.
They just fall through the cracks. They don't get physical releases over here.
Right.
Or in the West, which I suppose limits their exposure. But a lot of them are on the eShop over here, you know.
Now that you say that, actually, yes, it didn't come on the upcoming, so it wasn't in an upcoming games video.
Right,
I seem to remember, but then I remember it shadow dropped, and I was like, "What the heck's that? That looks decent."
I see. Yeah.
And then we couldn't cover it by that point. So yeah, it did release on the eShop, so it is out here. But yeah, I'd be buying the physical because it was so much cheaper.
Yeah, I don't know about you. When I use PlayAsia, which I do every so often, you know, every few months I might treat myself. I have like one of 2 objectives. I'm either buying something I know isn't coming out over here that I want, like Fatal Frame, that sort of thing, or I'm just looking for the most obscure games that have an English language to them to just give them a try, as long as they're not too expensive. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes you do just end up with something pretty decent, don't you? You know, that you wouldn't expect.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm the second one for sure.
Yeah.
Just go through what's got English. That looks ridiculous. I'll buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my next one actually is very similar in terms of me doing that on PlayAsia. Funny enough, this is not sponsored by PlayAsia, by the way.
No,
so
it's not.
It's not. I had one that I'd had on my shelf for a while that I finally got around to playing, that I bought from them, and Mark seems to have done the same.
Yeah, don't use it unless you want to.
Well, down below. Well,
can't be sponsored. You'd never say that in a sponsored video.
Be rude not to.
It would, wouldn't it? 5%.
5%. Woo. No, I'm all joking aside. My next one is called Dead in Vinland, and
that rings a bell.
Yeah, it's exactly what you just said. You know, I went on PlayAsia, I was picking a couple of bits up, just had a random search for anything that sounded remotely interesting that had English, and this popped up. This is one of East Asia Soft's like own releases. Which generally do have English on them, you know. And it's, I suppose it is a roguelike. Well, it definitely is a roguelike. But it's it took me a while to get into, I must say. Like, it throws a lot of information at you. There's a lot of screens to get your head round, a lot of stats. But I must say, having now spent a few hours with it, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I know the other day, certainly, because I did what you just queried, did this even get a release on?
Yeah.
And I looked, and it was on sale on the eShop at the minute for like a couple of pound.
Wow.
So if that is still the case by the time of this, at least have a look at it, It came out like in 2018. Never even heard of it. And it's, so basically you're a family, set in the Viking times, you're a family whose house is destroyed, you're attacked, your house is destroyed, and you escape onto a boat and you make your way, out to sea, and you end up on this island. So it's a mum, dad, daughter, and then the mum's sister. Mm-hmm. And basically you, after a couple of days on this island, so the island is made up of screens. So you'll scroll left to right with the L and R button to see each screen of your camp, and you can assign your family members to a job. So it may be that they go to the workshop and they start to build whatever it is you need, a cooking pot or a timber yard or whatever, and they'll build these bits, or you can send one out to go and forage. You can send one to the water well to convert, to purify water.
Yeah.
Whatever. And as you go through, so you do a few days of this, and then this fella rocks up to your camp and he's like, this is my island, you want to live here, you're going to pay me tribute every week or I'm going to kill you.
There's always one, aren't there?
There's always one, yeah. Nasty so-and-so.
Yeah.
So that sets up the game's, main hook of having this weekly amount of X that you need to provide to them to keep on living. But ultimately your aim is to overthrow him.
Nice.
And there is combat in the game, it's turn-based combat.
Oh, that's cool.
So you get into encounters and you choose which of your characters you're bringing into combat with you. They each have their own skills. It's set on like planes. There was a game that came out right early in the Switch's life, Has Been Heroes.
Oh yeah.
And very similar, but you had you're stuck in lanes and you can move forward a lane or back, and obviously you can do melee attacks or range. Combat's actually pretty decent considering it's not even a major part of the game. And you can find other survivors on the island and recruit them to your camp, and ultimately you can have like 18 people living in what starts as a small family shack and becomes an actual base, an actual stronghold if you like. And they all have their own strengths and weaknesses, and you have to keep everyone happy, and it almost becomes like a sim management. And they all have, so you have hunger, you have depression, fatigue, and if any of those reach maximum, that person dies.
Ooh.
So I have had one game over where one of my people died of depression because I didn't know how to get that down. I couldn't seem to keep that down. Yeah. And they died. They hung themselves, and I had to start again. And then I found the second time round that if I built a brewery, you could release that depression because you could have characters just go there and speak to each other. Okay. And then it brought that down. So it's just finding balance of what you need in your camp, I know I just said a lot of stuff, but it's one of those games where it has a lot to offer, and you almost don't know where to start when you're talking about it, but hopefully the images are helping as well. Yeah, I don't know if you said this, so apologies if you did, but with those original starting group, they hold more value, right? They hold the ultimate value. The ultimate value, four of them, if one of them dies, it's game over. As far as I've read, because it hasn't happened yet, if one of the others dies, you'll cope with it as you'll move on through the game with it. But if one of those four original members dies, that's it. So anyone else dies, they're like not too fussed. I'm sure they bury him and see you later, Cedric. Say a prayer or whatever they did. Say a little prayer. But it's a very good game. It's just I know when I first started it, I was like, wow, this is a lot. I can't even get my head around what I'm doing. But give it a couple of hours and it's a very, very, very pleasant surprise. And if it is on sale, all the more so, at least go and have a look at it, I would say. Yeah, okay. All right then. All right, the last one I wanted to talk about then is one that we played on Friday. It's that Battle Cats Unite in co-op. Oh yeah. Because I really did enjoy the co-op. Now this essentially is, how would you describe these? It describes itself as a tower defense game. Okay. But I know that myself, when I hear that term, I don't think of this. So it's basically, you have a base at one end, base at the other, you move towards your enemy's base whilst they do the same, and you have to keep throwing units to defeat their units, and ultimately destroy their base to clear the level. Yes. Now it was quite difficult in single player, well, I think that's a bit of an understatement. It was very difficult in single player, but then in co-op it felt like it was more balanced for that. Yeah, so basically you use your level currency, which kind of shoots up all the time to buy units, and obviously you unlock the units through progression or through like a gachapon machine, and you'll get better units. And when you play it in co-op, you generally can have up to 10 different types of units you can choose from. So when you play in co-op, you get to choose 5 each, and you have your own in-level currency, which means you basically have double the currency. Yeah, it was good. I initially thought, this is very strange. I mean, it is strange. You've got these very unusual looking cats. But there's a nice balance between the players in co-op, because obviously there's a different cost to each unit that you put out. So you're kind of trying to balance who's going to be the person that has those really expensive units, and they kind of wait and charge up and then get those out. Then there's a ton of content. Now, a weird thing that we were talking about before is that the Japanese release on the eShop
which has English, has a bit more content.
Yeah, apparently so. I mean, this is because this was an Android iOS game. Has been for many years, but it released on the Switch in Japan. I think it was 2018. So it's been out over there for a fair while. And people mentioned in the comments that if you buy that version, it has more content than this. I mean, without buying it, you would really never know that. So just basing it on this one version, I thought actually the content was absolutely fine. But that's just something to bear in mind, I guess.
Yeah, and compared to like things like the mobile version of this, it's so much better because it really does do away with the energy and all of that rubbish. But you do still have a few after effects, don't you?
Yeah, they've done away with it without actually removing it. If that makes sense. You know, they obviously didn't want to have to completely rehaul it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like this is a remnant of the mobile version. You normally would have had to have stopped here, but don't worry about it. We'll give you the money you need to get past. It's fine, you know. So you just got to press A basically. Yeah. But they should have just taken it out. It just looks a bit cheap leaving it in there, you know. Yeah,
or at least like come up with some way to make it better. There's mini games in there that were actually really fun, weren't they, for two players? Just stick one of those in each time.
Exactly. Yeah, they could have handled that bit better, to be honest. But I don't think, well, judging by what was said in the kind of promotional material in the eShop, this is the version that's introduced co-op.
Right.
Now I say this is, I mean that may apply to the Japanese version is, but compared to the mobile versions at least, and the co-op was where the fun was at, wasn't it?
It really was. It was significantly more enjoyable in co-op, which is sometimes the case, but pretty rarely, I'd say.
Yeah, not to this extent. It was at first, because it felt so much easier, I was like, this just feels like a get out of jail free card. But actually no, when you started to obviously move in a bit further and you had to strategize, you know, you start to think about, shall I take the weaker, cheaper units and you take the stronger, more expensive ones, so I can just start ploughing them out whilst you're saving up for, obviously if you're playing in single player, you've got to choose one or the other, and all the while you're getting attacked. So it did feel nice to have that upper hand, but you still had to think about how you deployed it properly.
Yeah, it gave way more strategy to the game, weirdly enough, you know, having that other person there, which was, it was really fun. We obviously play a different game every Friday night. That was the one that we've just played, and I really enjoyed it. So that was my last one.
Nice. And it's interesting to say as well, because Metal Slug Attack Reloaded released like 4 days before this. Very odd that they released so close together. Very similar games is the reason I mention it, like very similar. Both were mobile games. Originally, I think Battle Cats came first. So they do a lot of the same things, but I do feel that this is so much better in terms of balance. But on the flip side, and it has co-op, of course. On the flip side, the other one, I just prefer Metal Slug. It just looks so much nicer, and it's a lot cheaper. So it's one of those, like, you know,
this would be poison. Exactly, it'd be a great sales pickup. There is a full review if you want to go check it out.
Right, my last one then is a game called NeoSprint, another blast from the past to a degree. This is a continuation of the Sprint series. So back in the 70s in arcades you had Sprint, which I've never played, I'm not going to pretend I did, but I did play Super Sprint, which came out years later again in the arcades. I played the Atari 2600 port of it, which was obviously nothing like the arcade one. But it's like a single screen top-down racer where I don't know how, I've always struggled to describe how these work. You know, as you go around corners, you have to basically press left or right depending on which way you're turning. To get you around the corner.
Fixed perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. I love these sort of games. I love these racers. If they're done right, I think they're so much fun. And Super Sprint, I loved back in the day, although I did play it recently it's on like the Midway arcade collection or something on the Xbox 360, and I've forgotten how stupidly hard it was to control, like, sliding about all over the place.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of these, like, you know, like micro machines, they were really hard because you couldn't see what was coming past a certain point, so you just basically had to be a Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, in this one, obviously, you could always see, because it was a fixed perspective of the whole map, and it just zoomed right out to fit the whole map in. Didn't make it any easier. And it was controlling it, you know, like you were so slippery, everything felt so slippery. I'll say, and it's a massive plus point to this game, the controls feel on point.
Ooh, nice.
I will say the cars do feel quite heavy, almost to the point of feeling sluggish at times. Like if you bash into something and have to start again in terms of acceleration, it does take a while, and it'll be nice to have a bit more oomph, but that's completely counterbalanced by just how responsive the handling is going around corners. It feels great.
Is this like Mario Kart where you get different CCs? Do you get faster cars? Is it going to speed up as you go through a career or something?
No, I mean, what it has a career mode or a story mode, which isn't much of a story, to be honest. I mean, there's barely a cutscene in it. You basically play 3 races, and then you face off against someone. And they'll come on screen and give it the big one. You know, I'm much better than you. Off you go and fight them. You go back to the screen. Oh, I wasn't. Fair enough. And that's it. That's the story, apparently.
Tail between legs.
Yeah, and then you move on to the next one. But playing that unlocks the same courses in Grand Prix mode, which you can also play, and there's free race and time trials, but it also has a track editor.
Ooh.
And it's a pretty decent one. It's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
And you can download, or you can upload, your tracks to share them, and you can download other people's tracks. So that's quite a big selling point, I would say.
Massive.
So it does have a decent amount of content in it. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any. So if you finish a story mode segment,
yeah,
you get pieces that you can use in the track editor.
Okay.
As opposed to getting things that make your car better. But I'm sure, unless I'm wrong, and I might be wrong, in the original Super Sprint, I'm sure you picked up like spanners or wrenches on the track, and if you picked a certain amount up, you could add something to your car. You don't seem to be able to do that in this one. They've taken that out, which is a bit strange. I don't know why they didn't leave that in.
Yeah, so Atari are bringing back a lot, aren't they? They're doing a lot of the old classics and they're doing them in a good way.
Yeah, they are. They do their Recharge series, which is like a hyper, almost on steroids version of the original game.
Yeah.
But they do other things as well. Like I see they're releasing a new GYRO's Revenge, which was a game obviously that came out back in the day. But they're doing it as like a 2D platformer, which was nothing like the original. So it'll be interesting to see how that works when it releases. But yeah, you're right. They are bringing back a lot of those old IPs, and this one, it's expensive. I will say that for what you get. But I do think it's a good game. Looks very blurry in handheld mode as well, because it's so zoomed out. It looks like my 4-year-old's coloured it in and got out the lines, you know what I mean?
That's a shame.
It is a shame, yeah, but still a good game. Good game, just quite expensive.
Get your 4-year-old a Parker.
We'll stick with a Bic, it's fine.
So that's it. Those are our 6 very random games that we've been playing. I like that. It's a nice eclectic bunch. Let us know what you've been playing down in the comments as well.
Yep, don't forget, as Mark said, if you're looking for eShop credit, there's our website links down there, and using it, if you get your cards from there, you can save yourself 5%, getting it back in cash back, which is always good. And funnily enough, there's a link down there to Play Asia. I don't think we mentioned it.
No.
5% off if you feel like using it.
I'd get Gungrave G.O.R.E.
I'm sure you would.
Actually, I wouldn't. I'd get Katana Kami if I was going to buy one of the two.
Of the two, yeah.
Yeah, that's more my bag.
Nice,
baby.
Definitely in Vinland's very good. But again, it's on sale on eShop for stupidly cheap at the minute. So.
Yeah, for sure.
A quick thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.